tracking your spending doesn't automatically lead to growing your finances, because you might still overspend. It's actually very likely that you'll overspend if you, even with you tracking your spending, because there's always something. There's always an emergency. There's always a new bill. There's always a really good deal. There's always another thing that you could do. There's always more food to buy. There's always. If you go off of, okay, I have this much left in my bank account, what can I do? You're never going to have any left in your bank account.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping educators like yourself navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Sean Morgan, a full-time teacher and entrepreneur, and I'm here to help teachers navigate everything related to your money. Whether you have questions about budgeting on a teacher's salary, managing student loans, increasing your income, or making the most of your benefits, I'm here to make money less confusing, more empowering, and a tool you can use to focus on what matters most. So whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things money related. So if you're ready to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life, let's dive in. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.
Hello, today it's just you and me. I don't have a guest on today. I wanted to thank everyone who's listened so far. It's been wonderful. I've really loved the guests we've had. I just want to remind you, if you want to get coaching, whatever your financial question is, if you have a very specific question you want help with, or if you're not even sure where to start, if you are just wanting to make sure your goals are good goals, whatever it is you need help with, whatever coaching you need, I would love to help you through it. So if you would like to come on the podcast for coaching, just go to teachermoneyshow.com/guest. teachermoneyshow.com/guest. There's a form for you to fill out there. Just lets me know you're interested. I'll reach out to you. We will set up a time for us to have a coaching session. I'd love to talk to you. Now, if you are worried about, I don't want to go on the show, everyone will know that I'm getting coaching. If that's you, don't worry about it. We have ways of doing this show anonymously. So if you would like to come on the show anonymously, we can definitely do that. So that way you can get the coaching you need without worrying about whether or not people will recognize you. So with that in mind, please go to teachermoneyshow.com/guest, and I'd love to interview you on the show. All right. Today we're talking about the second most important principle of finances. So remember, we talked about the first most important principle, which was tracking your spending. If you can track your spending, you can get that feedback you need to be able to overcome spending in places you don't even know where you're going. And then you can start to grow your finances from there. But tracking your spending doesn't automatically lead to growing your finances, because you might still overspend. It's actually very likely that you'll overspend if you, even with you tracking your spending, because there's always something. There's always an emergency. There's always a new bill. There's always a really good deal. There's always another thing that you could do. There's always more food to buy. There's always. If you go off of, okay, I have this much left in my bank account, what can I do? You're never going to have any left in your bank account. So tracking your spending helps you know what you're spending money on so you can know where you can cut, but it doesn't always lead to more money in your bank at the end of the day, especially if you leave that money in your checking account. So that way, say it grows to 2, 3, 4, 5,000, then you suddenly realize, I could go on a really awesome vacation with this, and it's all gone again. So what you need to do is pay yourself first. Is that it? Pay yourself first. Now, you might be wondering, what do you mean pay yourself first? Aren't I getting all of my money? I'm being paid. How do I pay myself first? Well, paying yourself first, what it looks like is before you put money aside for anything else, you put money aside for savings. And savings can mean a lot of different things. Emergency funds is one form of savings. Savings for a later purchase is another form of savings. But mostly, besides the emergency fund, so emergency fund comes first, but mostly when I say pay yourself first, I mean put money aside for the future, for investing, for just having money that will grow in your bank account. So that way you are getting richer over time. That's what I mean by paying yourself first. So not paying for future spending. I mean, you will spend that money in the future when you retire, but not like a short-term goal. That's one form of saving. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about taking money out of your account that you'd be spending and putting it somewhere that it'll grow or increase over time. That is paying yourself first. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. You can put money into just a separate savings account. That would be like an emergency fund would be a savings account because you don't want that money to be hard to access in the event of an emergency. I really like to put that money aside into like a separate bank entirely. I have an online bank that is separate from all of my other banking, so that way I can just make that where my savings go, and I try not to touch it. And that will let that grow and grow and grow. So that's putting money aside for an emergency fund. Then you can also count money that goes into your retirement accounts, whether that's an HSA or 401k or 403b or an IRA. Any of those, 457, right? Any of those are going to be a good retirement spot for your funds to pay yourself first. And then beyond that, you can pay yourself first by paying for or putting money into investable brokerage accounts. That's where you're investing outside of retirement accounts in stocks, or investing in real estate, or investing in, I don't know, rare art, if that's your thing. I wouldn't recommend that unless you're an art teacher who really knows a lot about rare art. But the point is that you can invest in a lot of different things to pay yourself first. But what you're doing is you're taking money away from your spending account and putting it somewhere else. Okay, why do we do this? We've probably all heard the analogy of the big rocks, right? We've got your sand in the bottom, and then your small rocks in the middle, medium rocks, and then big rocks, and it just overflows the jar, right? But if you put in your big rocks first, and then your medium-sized rocks, and then your small rocks, and then your sand, it all fits nicely inside of a jar, right? That's the analogy that's often used for essential standards, which is entirely up to the teacher, which makes the standards that they write that you're supposed to teach subjective. And anyway, that kind of bothers me. But we have our essential standards that are the big rocks, and then we put in our supplementary standards for our medium rocks, and then we put in our guiding other standards. I don't even know what we call the medium. And then we put in the stuff we like to do for fun. That's our sand. Whatever. The point is that we use this analogy. I think I've heard it every single professional development start of the year ever. Because we like this analogy to help us understand how we handle having so much to do as a teacher. The same thing applies here with money. Because usually what we think is, what is the first most important thing? Bills. Gotta pay my bills so I can keep my house, keep my car, keep the power on. Next most important thing, food, right? Don't want to go hungry. And then, I got some more money, so I'll, go out this night and I'll go watch a movie and I'll buy these new shoes or whatever you do with that. And then you're like, and whatever I have left over at the end, I'll save and invest. But there isn't money left over at the end, right? That's our problem. We know this because if we always had money left over at the end with that mindset, we wouldn't have a money problem. So we need to make sure that we shift that and we pay ourselves first and then we pay our bills, and then we buy our food and other necessities, and then we do the extra fun stuff on the end. And if you do that, you will guaranteed have more money over time. If you try and just shove investing and saving at the end, you're always going to be frustrated about not being able to save. So that is the big rock. The big rock that has to go in first is in investing. And if we don't do that, we won't be able to invest. So I want to drive this point home with a quote. Okay, there's a fantastic book called The Richest Man in Babylon. I highly recommend it. Okay, just to give you an idea, the book is an allegory. It's a story that teaches financial principles, but it's a story. It's about a guy who starts off, I believe he's a shield maker. No, he's not a shield maker. He's like a bronzesmith, something like that. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and read it again. But he's just, a regular worker in Babylon. And he gets a chance to talk to the richest man in Babylon. And he asks him, how can I make it? How can I become rich like you? And this quote is the answer to that question. And then it goes on and teaches more and more money principles in story throughout the book. It's actually a series of short stories that are shoved together. But it teaches them in such a way that it's accessible to almost anybody. I read this with a group of 7th graders, and they nailed it. They understood it. They got it. They're like, oh yeah, this is what this is saying. That they could tell me the financial principle, why it made sense, what they were going to do about it. And then we were able to do all sorts of great discussions about it. So this is very accessible. Anybody can understand the principles being taught in this book. I highly recommend that if you have not read The Richest Man in Babylon, or if it's been a long time since you've read The Richest Man in Babylon, go back and read it. It is worth it. But here's the answer given to the question, what should I do to become rich like you? The richest man in Babylon says, pay yourself first, right? Or he says, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. That's his way of saying pay yourself first. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. And then the main character responds with this, but all I earn is mine to keep. Is it not? I demanded. And then the richest man replies, far from it. Do you not pay the garment maker? Do you not pay the sandal maker? Do you not pay for the things you eat? Can you live in Babylon without spending what you have to show for your earnings of the past month? What for the past year? Fool, you pay to everyone but yourself. Dullard, you labor for others. As well be a slave and work for what your master gives you to eat and wear. If you did keep for yourself 1/10 of all you earned, how much would you have in 10 years? My knowledge of numbers did not forsake me. This is the main character responding. And I answered, as much as I earn in 1 year. You speak but half the truth, he retorted. Every gold piece you save is a slave to work for you. Every copper it earns is its child that also can earn for you. If you would become wealthy, then what you save must earn, and its children must earn, that all may help to give to you the abundance you crave. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. It should be not less than 1/10, no matter how little you earn. It can be as much more as you can afford. Pay yourself first. Do not buy from the clothes maker and the sandal maker more than you can pay out of the rest, and still have enough for food and charity and penance to the gods. I love this quote. This right here, this quote, this small little quote that I read for you, really just sums up everything about good financial sense. And there's a lot of nuance and learning that goes into making sure you understand how to properly use your money in our modern context and with our modern tools and yada yada yada. But if you can just understand this, pay yourself first, not less than 1/10 of what you earn, and then you invest it, which is what he talks about by putting these the pieces of gold to work for every copper its child can earn you, etc. That's investing. That's trying to receive a return on your investment. And then use whatever's left over from that 10th to buy, the things that you need. But then I also love this at the end, and we'll talk more about this later, but still have enough for food. Okay, that's necessities, charity, and penance to the gods. So make sure that you can also help others. All right, we don't want to stop being kind humans for the sake of money. I think that is a beautiful lesson wrapped up in right there. And we'll talk about this more, but just remember that we want to pay ourselves first, make sure we can survive, and don't forget to help others any way that you can. Okay, what counts as paying yourself first? Well, paying yourself first means building an emergency fund or investing for the future, putting money into your pocket to stay there. So just remember that if you are building that emergency fund or investing for the future, you are paying yourself first. So I know we've already talked about this, but I just want to remind yourself that it's not saving for a trip. It's not putting money aside for buying a new game or whatever it is that you do. It is not spending money on your classroom. Okay, it is putting money in a separate account. It cannot be in your checking account for emergencies and investing for the future. I really like to do it this way. This is how I set it up. I like to have my money go from my checking account to my saving account. Okay, so I have an automatic withdrawal from where my money gets deposited, and it goes over to a saving account. And then from the saving account, I can have the money go from the saving account to the investing, right? So that way I have this continual flow from checking to saving to investing. And then if the saving account is my emergency fund, if I have to crank that money down, I can turn off the investment nozzle, right? I can turn off or turn down how much is going out of that for investing while I build back up my emergency fund. That's just a way that I think really works. It keeps your checking in one spot, your saving in another spot. Once again, different banks is really helpful because if your savings can go into your checkings by the simple click of a button, it's not really in savings, right? A separate bank at least makes it so you have to wait 1, 2, 3 days sometimes for the money to transfer. So it puts a little bit of an extra shield of protection between your checking and your saving account. And then moving on to the investments. Wherever you want to invest, you can move it into a taxable brokerage or to real estate investments or to other investing opportunities, which we'll talk about later, of course. I also really like investing in retirement accounts as well. So the most important part of this, though, is to make sure that you do this automatically. If you try and pay yourself first every month and you have to do it, you're not going to do it. Okay? Human beings make emotional decisions. We easily forget what we're supposed to do. Or we say, well, this month is different because every month is different. So we have to make it automatic. You have to make the decisions when you are lucid and logical and using that, prefrontal cortex thing, whatever you call that, instead of using, the lower parts of your brain, which is what we usually make decisions with. When you can say, okay, the money is automatically going to withdraw on the first of the month from my checking and go to my saving. And then the money for my investments will automatically withdraw on the second of the month from my saving to my investing. There you go. You don't have to think about it from month to month to month. This way you consistently do the right thing without having to consistently do the right thing. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that if you're going to pay yourself first, you do it automatically. Paying yourself first is the first step to having more money actually grow in your account every single month. If every teacher paid themselves first, teachers would no longer be in financial trouble. It's a fact. Yes, we want more money because we deserve it. So we work hard. because we are not getting paid our worth. But we can take control, and the first step to doing that is paying yourself first. Now, one more thing I want to address. Is paying off debt paying yourself first? In my opinion, yes. Because you can either take that money and invest it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12%, depending on where you're at and what you're investing in, which is not guaranteed, or you can get 6% automatically by paying down a student loan, or 8% almost these days by paying on a mortgage if you have a higher mortgage payment, or 25% by paying off a credit card, right? If you can put money towards debts that have high interest rates, you are putting yourself first, because you are reducing your overall interest payments on those debts. Now, there is a gray zone, right? If you're under 6%, you usually can get more in investments. Not saying that you should not pay off any debts underneath 6%, but maybe you can consider, if you don't have any of those higher interest debts, just continually making small payments on those lower debts, and then putting your excess money into investments, because logically, mathematically, graphically over time, that would make you more money. But if you really hate debt and you're just tired of it and you want to get out, blow the debt up. I am never going to tell anyone not to get out of debt. Getting out of debt is so freeing, it is so good for your mental health, for your soul, and it is paying yourself first. So if you are in debt, just want to let you know that paying yourself first means paying off your debt. That is part of this. Once you paid off your debt, don't start using that money to live the high life. You're used to putting that money towards debt already. Just roll that into your investment vehicle, and you are off to the races. That is an amazing strategy. Taking whatever you were paying on, say you had a $45 a month minimum payment here, and a $65 a month minimum payment there, and a $50 a month minimum payment there. That's like what, $160? I don't know. I don't do math that fast, but somewhere in there. Instead of giving yourself an $160 raise to go buy shoes every month, you can give yourself a $160 investment that will grow and grow and grow to tens of thousands of dollars over the course of your career. All right. So that is paying yourself first. Very, very important principle. I highly recommend it. If you want to be wealthy, pay yourself first. And remember, if you are wanting to figure out what you can do to pay yourself first, if you're trying to figure out what the best course of action is to get there, go ahead and go to teachermoneyshow.com/guest. Fill out the form, and I'd love to have you on for a coaching session, and I'll see you then.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.